A warm welcome to Education USA Ghana Facebook Live event. Since we started our live sessions this year, we've learned so much from the experiences shared by our past and current students of US institutions. What are your expectations for today? Before we start with today's session, let me introduce you to the role of Education USA. So Education USA is a US government advising network which guides students through the process of furthering their education in the USA. We give accurate, comprehensive, and current information. The network is in 175 countries and has about 550 advisors. In Ghana, we have 2 centers, Education USA Accra, which is at the US Embassy, and Education USA Kumasi at ACE Consult. On behalf of Education USA Network and Education USA Ghana, I will take this opportunity to congratulate all students who have gained admission into US schools. This session is for you. The question on our table for today is, what's next after my admission as a student? We know that students at times get themselves confused at this stage. No more confusion. Education USA is here to help you. My name is Margaret Nyako. I am an Education USA advisor at the Education USA Advising Center in Kumasi. Today, I am joined by 2 powerful ladies. They will be taking us through the whole process. I'm privileged to introduce to you Courtney, a consular officer at the US Embassy, and Benis Afote, Education USA advisor at the US Embassy. Please type your questions in the comments section. It will be answered after the presentation. Benis, what do you have for us this evening?
Margaret, thank you very much. I'm excited to be here. Today is a very special day. As Margaret said, you don't have to be confused about anything. For most people, once they gain admission, all they worry about is the student visa application. But there are a few things you also have to pay attention to. So I'm just going to go through quickly because we have a very special VVIP consular here. I'm not going to spend too much time. You see me every day, you don't see her every day. So I'm just going to walk you through quickly some of the things you need to pay attention to. If you haven't done that already, you need to communicate with your school and show appreciation for them having confidence in you to give you an admission. If you look at the statistics, usually there's just a small percentage of the bigger number of applicants who get accepted. So you need to say thank you. If you haven't done this already, you may need to send some financial documents to your school in order to receive your I-20. Most of you have your I-20s, but those who are still in the process, especially for those who got accepted this fall, not last year, you need to do that and request your I-20. Once you receive the I-20, you also have to pay an enrollment deposit. This helps the school to know that you are committed to coming to them. Some people do multiple applications. So you need to pay the enrollment fee at the school you intend to enroll in to hold a seat, so to speak, so that the admissions people and the international office will know that you are coming. The amount will vary from school to school, but it's important you plan to pay that. And then once you receive your I-20, sometimes, a few times, there are mistakes on the I-20. You know that we write our dates differently. We write the day first, the month, and the year. For example, Americans write the month first, the day, and then the year. So sometimes it's important to double check things like that on your I-20 to be sure that everything is correct. You don't wait till the last minute before you say, oh, let me see. There's a portion you have to sign. You look at the program you are going to study to be sure that everything is well captured. So if you find that everything is accurate, that's great. If you find mistakes on your I-20, it's important to write to your contact at your school and get them to rectify it before you interview with it. So those are some of the things you do at the initial stages. Once you pay your enrollment deposits, also check your passport. These are documents that we don't use every time. Sometimes your passport may be expiring and you don't even notice it until few, maybe weeks before you are due to travel. So please check and be sure that your passport is good to be used for the interview. And then you also have to make housing arrangements. Okay, some schools will prefer that you live on campus. This is particularly true for those going for undergraduate programs. Some schools have a policy that all undergraduates, at least for the first year or first 2 years, will have to live on campus. For graduate students, it doesn't really matter. You have to check the on-campus and the off-campus rates and see which one is better for you. So you also need to determine if you want to live alone, which means you pay a lot more in most cases, or you want to share your accommodation so that you can pay less. All these are things you need to be working on. If you are going to share accommodation, you may have a roommate, so you need to fill a questionnaire to determine what kind of roommate would work for you. Another thing you have to be working on will be immunizations. Depending on the state you will be going to, you may need to do different kinds of immunizations. So for Ghanaians traveling outside of Ghana, you need the yellow fever. That one is, I would say, constant, is given. But depending on where you are going, you may need to take other things like MMR or tuberculosis, you know, different forms of, so you need to check with your school. And usually if you have received your admissions package already, there will be additional information to let you know what else you have to do. You need to start working on all these. Sometimes they give you health forms to send to your family doctor or your health people, like take it to your hospital and let somebody complete some portions for you, just so they will have an idea of your health history. All these are things you need to work on. If your state doesn't require additional immunization, they may not say anything about that. That's fine. It means that you just have to do the yellow fever. And then also, depending on your school, you may need to select your courses and register before you come, or you do it when you get there and you are doing your orientation. So you need to check all these things out. For some schools, you will need to do a lot of things on your portal, the student portal. By now you have your student ID, you have login details, you can go to your portal and do so much there. You need to be checking your portal literally every day because information will be put on there and you need to be abreast with the information so that you will not miss out on anything. You will have to also apply for your student visa, which fortunately we have a consular officer here. So I'm not going to talk about that. I will turn over to consular when I'm done with a few things. You need to buy your air ticket. Don't buy your ticket now. You can make reservations at this time to have a sense of how much you will need to pay. But sometimes these reservations, they roll out very quickly. You have it for a few days and it's gone. Keep reserving. You need to, it's advisable to have your student visa approved before you buy a ticket. So take note of that. And then you also have to plan to participate in pre-departure events. We used to do all of these things in person, but COVID deprived us of that. We will do a pre-departure orientation here on this platform later in the in the coming months. We will update you on that. So these are the main things. The last thing, but not the least, is I mentioned about immunizations. Now, COVID is here with us. There are vaccines, so people are asked to vaccinate. Depending on your school, they may require that you vaccinate before you come, or you do it when you are there. But travel guidelines may also depend at the time of your travel, whether you need to have a COVID test or even have the vaccine before you go. So these are things you need to keep an eye on. You need to watch out. You need to be talking with your schools. Don't be afraid to ask them any questions about any of these things we've discussed. And if they send you information on any of them you do not understand, please reach back to them or ask your Education USA advisor. We are here to work with you and help you to understand the process fully so that your transition from here to the US will be smoother as much as possible. At this time, I think I've covered most of the things I want to talk about. I will turn over to Consular to educate us on the student visa application process. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you, Bernice. And I think that you and Margaret and you folks at Education USA are the real VIPs. So thank you for all that you do for us and for students. I am with the consular section at the US Embassy in Ghana. And first, as I just commend all of you students and potential students for persevering through this process, especially now I know that with a global pandemic, as you said, COVID's here and that it's been a very stressful year. And so trying to go through this process with things changing and constantly in flux and the pandemic wreaking havoc on all of our lives, I know that it adds extra stress. So I commend you for sticking with it and working through the process. The way that I see international student processes, especially in terms of Ghanaians going to the US, you have the school admissions, which Bernice and Margaret are the experts there, the visa process, then you have, if you obtain the visa, traveling to the United States and the process at the border where the Department of Homeland Security and CBP in particular allows folks in or out or does not. Then there's the actually going to school part that at the end of this long journey. So I'm just here to speak only about the visa process. So very focused just for a couple of minutes and then glad to ask questions, but just to give you a bit of information specifically about the visa process right now here in Ghana. Okay, so I'll just spend a few minutes to tell you about our current state of operations as we're working in the consular section regarding student visas. Second are some of the steps you can take to prepare for an interview. And then third, the interview itself. So looking very specifically at those three things, our current operations, the documents that you can prepare, and then the interview. If you have more specific questions or about your own particular case, please do reach out to Bernice and Margaret if you have specific questions, or your designated school official, as Bernice had mentioned. So in the International Student Office at your particular institution, those folks are a wealth of knowledge and they will be able to speak with you about your specific question. Okay, so to start off with was the current operations of the consular section at the US Embassy in Accra. We sincerely hope to be able to interview all student visa applicants in time for your start date in the fall. This is very much dependent on many things such as the pandemic conditions, staffing, safety measures. So this is why we may not be available, we may not have available appointments, but we are trying very earnestly to get as many folks in as we can before your start date. We know that fall semester is, not far on the horizon. So we are trying everything that we can in order to get you folks in and be able to interview before that start date. So what you can do in order to try to get a visa interview appointment is that if your school start date, and on your I-20, it's down there on the left hand, about 3/4 of the way down on the page, your start date, if it's within 45 days, So if your start date of your program is within 45 days and your visa appointment is, say, in October or something much further away, you can request or submit an expedite request within ustraveldocs.com. If there are no other available appointments, all you have is an appointment long in the future, you can request an expedited appointment. Okay, so again, if your start date was within those 45 days, and we look at those on a very regular basis and are trying to accommodate as many as humanly and safely possible. Okay, and please note that once you have an appointment, you can only submit an expedited appointment one time. So just be conscientious of that, okay? So we're trying to get as many folks in as we can, again, according to safety guidelines and the personnel that we have at the embassy. But there is that mechanism for trying to get as many students who are starting in the fall semester or starting soon in as quickly or as efficiently as possible. So if you have any questions about that, or if what I said wasn't particularly clear, the best way to get clarity or to get more information is to email us. And our email address is consular@state.gov. Again, consular, CONSULAR, Accra, @state.gov. And we will be able to answer any questions that you have, okay? So that was the first thing to cover, just what we're doing currently to try to get as many of you potential students in. So the second thing to briefly mention are some of the documents or the requirements or how you can prepare for an interview. Because for student visas, there are specific documents that are required. So you need to have your DS-160. And I know that several of you had questions about a DS-160. And on travel.state.gov, the State Department's website, there's a really helpful frequently asked questions specifically about the DS-160. So please look at that, read through the questions. It gives you a step-by-step of how to fill it out. So we need the DS-160 confirmation page. You need a passport, as Bernice mentioned, and it needs to have at least 6 months of validity on it. You need one passport photo. It has to be 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters. It has to be within the last 6 months. So even if you have a really great picture from 5 years ago, I'm sorry, it needs to be within 6 months. So bring one of those. You'll need to bring your non-immigrant visa fee receipt, your I-20, Bernice mentioned, your SEVIS receipt. That it happens fairly often that students don't yet have their SEVIS. And if you do not have that, that can make your process much longer and you'll have to wait, and it can just really slow things down. So make sure you have both your I-20 and your SEVIS. Those are two of the most important documents you can have. And then if you can consider bringing, just to have with you if you're asked by the consular officer, some other documents in support of your application. So you could have your admissions letter to the specific program or your funding letter, your transcripts. If you are applying for a master's program, you could bring your bachelor's academic transcripts, your test scores, your WASI, your SATs if you took them, your GRE if you took it. So any sort of academic transcripts that will just help to support your application. Any other academic documents that you have, any financial and other documents that you have that could just really provide credible evidence that you have the funds to pay for your program. Okay, that's one of the questions that comes up most often. How are you going to pay for your program? And any other supporting documents you could have on hand if asked. But again, the main ones that you need to have your SEVIS, your I-20, your passport photo, your DS-160 confirmation page, and your visa fee receipt, okay? So I know that's very quick, and I'm sorry, it may feel a bit stressful and overwhelming, but all of this information is on a couple of different websites, the U.S. Embassy in Ghana's website, but also travel.state.gov, which is the State Department's website. And Bernice can help you point you there or help with some of the specific requirements. But that's just a very rapid overview of some of the documents that you are going to need when you show up for your interview at the embassy. Okay, so that's the operational status of the embassy, of the consular section. Those are some of the documents that you need to prepare for your interview. And then finally, the last point that I'll touch rather briefly on is the interview itself. So a couple of things about the interview, especially because now things are slightly different because of our COVID safety protocols that we have in place. We really want to make sure that everyone who comes in to apply for a visa and everyone working in the section, that people are protected and safe and all of the COVID protocols are in place. So please do not arrive more than 15 minutes before your appointment. You won't be able to come in. We're trying to stay away from a queue, maintain social distancing. So please don't arrive more than 15 minutes before your scheduled time. But do make sure that you're there on the correct day, the correct time. As Bernice noted, we flip the month and the day. I don't know why we do that, but we do. So make sure you double check your appointment date and time, please. Note that there are no electronics within the consular section. And you will need to wear a face covering. You'll be asked to remove it once when we verify your identity. There's hand sanitizer for after you do that, but you'll need to wear a face covering. There are Veronica buckets outside at each door to please wash your hands. And then we have social distancing as well. We have a great video that we made. If you want to watch it, it walks you through the steps so you know what to expect. Because we do know that many folks, when they come for visa interviews, are nervous, and we understand that. And it's, you know, you've been working toward this for a long time, and it's a complicated process. And we truly understand that. So watch the video, you'll know what to expect. There will be one of our Ghanaian colleagues to steer you into the section when it's your time. You'll first go to one window where they will verify your information. They'll take your fingerprints, ask you a couple of questions, and then you'll go to the interview window where you will have your interview with an officer. And during that time, please know that the officers aren't out to get you or to catch you in anything. We're here to understand if you qualify for a student visa based upon US immigration law. And we will ask you questions, and the absolute best thing you can do is reply honestly and directly. You can have your documents there, but it really is, we want to hear from you, your choice of school, how you're going to fund your school, why that program, what is your academic background, these questions that we will ask you very specifically, and just for you to answer honestly and directly is the best thing that you can do. The three things that we're trying to see is, number one, are you a bona fide student? So are you academically prepared for this? Two, do you intend to depart the US after your program? So do you have ties that are going to bring you back? And number three, that you will be able to fund your education. So those are the three areas that we are looking at. Each case is considered individually. Every applicant is given utmost consideration based upon the requirements of US immigration law. And try to remain calm. Again, we know that many folks are nervous, but you know your situation better than anyone. We very much suggest and encourage you to not follow any script, or if someone else has given you talking points, to know just to speak from your own experience and your intentions, and let us know where you're coming from. And I think that's it. Again, if you have any questions, please, first of all, ask our tremendous colleagues at Education USA. They're a great source. You can ask your designated school official at the institution that you're looking to go to. You can also email us if it's a very specific visa-related question. You can email us at that email address that I mentioned before, consularakra@state.gov. I know this was a very quick overview, but hopefully you have some idea about what we're doing now, what you need to prepare, and then what the interview process will be like. Okay, so Bernice, that's all I have for now.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Courtney.
Yes, Bernice. Thank you so much, Courtney and Bernice, for your wonderful presentation. I think we have some questions coming in already. But before we move on to the questions, Bernice, do you have anything to add or anything to say? Yeah. Before we move on to the questions.
Oh, I think we should go on to the questions.
Okay, thank you. So my very first question, one of the students is asking, and I'm reading, my student visa was denied in 2019. Can I apply for emergency appointments this year?
Yes, you are always welcome to apply for an emergency appointment. Every time that someone comes into the consular section, they are given, this same consideration. We do look at the prior experience that we had with you, and we'll have that information on hand. But every interview is a new interview. We will take both the documents, the explanation, and the information that you provide fresh and new. And you are welcome to request an expedited appointment, again, as long as your start date is within those 45 days.
Okay. And then another question here, if someone has been denied a visa before, what are their chances of success this time? What can they do to improve their odds? And does it have any effect on their current interview?
Yeah, that's a understandable but difficult question. So like I mentioned, every time someone comes into the embassy, it is a new interview, it is a fresh interview, and they are given utmost consideration as their application relates to US immigration law. So we do have the information on hand from your prior visit. And so I would you are welcome to come back again. You will have a new interview, and we will look at those same criteria that I mentioned earlier of, are you a bona fide student? Do you have the intent to return to Ghana? And do you have sufficient funding for your intended program? So we will look at that same criteria, whether it's your first time coming in or whether it's your second time coming in.
There is another one. My May-June appointment was cancelled and my service fee payment will expire in July. Can I request for an emergency appointment or wait till 45 days from my start date?
Okay, I part of that cut out, excuse my internet connection, but I understand that someone's appointment in May or June was canceled, which I know that's been a source of stress for many people, including us. So that's why we're trying very much to get those folks in again. So please, let's all take a collective deep breath, which we've had to do too, and we will try to get you in there. Your SEVIS fee is about to expire. I heard that. And I didn't hear the date of when it will expire. But if you have concerns, you can always email Consular Accra, or you can request the expedited appointment. I didn't hear though when the SEVIS fee will expire.
The SEVIS fee payment will expire in July.
In July, okay. So hopefully we would still have time to do that. If you get nervous about that, or as it becomes closer to July, please either email us or go ahead and request the expedited appointment.
I think this question goes to Bernice. And I have been admitted in one of the schools I applied. As part of the message, it was indicated I accept the offer. Can I accept while I still wait for the response from the other schools I applied to? Bernice, you are muted.
I'm so sorry.
you.
Yeah, normally once you accept, you don't want to go back after some time to say, no, I'm not taking it, because some other people are waitlisted. And most schools give up to May 1st. For those who receive the admissions earlier on, you don't have to respond immediately. They give you up to some time to respond whether you are taking the offer or not, because they want to know who is coming, to know who they would deny. Sometimes they have good candidates, they can't take all of them. So they wait list some people subject to whether those they offer admissions to will take the offer or not. So if you are not sure you want to go to that school, maybe hold on, unless the date they give you to respond to has passed. Then in that case, I would say a bird in hand is worth 100 in the bush. So watch the times. If you have an opportunity to extend your acceptance, then you can do that. Otherwise, take what you have and run with it.
Okay, thank you. I have another question for Courtney. I have a valid F1 visa that expires April 2023, which I used for my master's program. I am currently in Ghana and admitted to start a doctorate program this fall in another school. I have a new I-20 and have made the CVIS fee payment. Can I still travel to the US on my current unexpired F1 visa to start my doctorate program this fall?
So specific questions like that are very personal and just related to one individual would be better to be answered through our email. I fully understand, and I'm glad that you're asking it before you make a decision one way or the other, but please email us at consularakra@state.gov, and then we can more clearly and concisely answer your question by looking into all of the specifics.
Okay. Another student would want to know if they need to show a bank statement during the interview section if you are on graduate assistantship.
Mm-hmm. So a bank statement is it's not a required document like your I-20 or your SEVIS or your SEAC confirmation page are. If you would like to have it with you to have just in case it comes up, you're welcome to do that. It likely will not be asked for, however. And a grad assistantship is great. What I would, in that situation, again, you do not need to have bank statements. If you would like to bring them to have everything you could possibly think of when you're there, since appointments are so tight and hard to come by at the moment, knowing that you can't bring much in, but if you want to bring a folder full of all of the information that you could think of just to have in case, since you are there, you're welcome to do that, knowing that most of it will not be asked for. And it's a bit of a sideways way to answer that, but I hope you understand what I am intending.
Yes. So with you, Courtney, at the visa interview, do you have a better case when you have either partial or full funding compared to the one who shows that he has enough money to fund himself?
So that's a difficult question because it's so individual, and each case is taken as an individual who's there applying based upon US immigration law. And again, those three tenets of, are you a bona fide student? Do you have the intention of returning to Ghana at the end of your program? And do you have the funding to cover your specific course of study? Those are the three questions, and it completely depends upon the individual.
How many times am I qualified for an expedited appointment as an F1 applicant?
Mm-hmm. So with each, you can request an expedited appointment one time. That's a good question. So you can't repeatedly request one. You request it one time, we answer very promptly. So I would make sure that you're very specific about when you request it, again, ideally within those 45 days, why you're requesting it. Please include your I-20. There's a space there to upload your I-20, and that needs to be there as well. But it is only the one time per appointment.
Okay. I think Margaret is frozen, so I'll take over. I have a question here. This student applied for an emergency visa before he learned that he can do that in 45 days. He hasn't heard from the embassy yet, but he's worried that because he requested outside of the time, the 60, first he thought it was 60 days. He's worried that he will be rejected, and he booked a date for October. If that happens, what could he do?
Again, some of these more specific questions may be easier to answer. They are easier to answer via email. I would stay tuned and see over the next couple of weeks. We're going to try to see how we can schedule as many students as possible, but it's a work in progress. So if you have a very specific question like that has the details and the dates, please send us an email and we'll be glad to look into it.
This is very helpful, that they can send an email about their personalized questions. So thank you very much. So there's another question which I think you've answered already, about whether you are going to make more dates available in June and July.
Yes, please. We are certainly trying, always keeping in mind the COVID safety protocols. I think we have Margaret back. But yes, we are trying and working now within our restrictions and our parameters that we have, but we are trying.
Thank you.
It's no guarantee though, just dependent of course on what the pandemic does and our personnel situation and the safety, but yes, we are trying.
I think there is another question here for Bernice. I received my admission letter yesterday, applied for a scholarship. How do I go about it?
I'm sorry, ask the question again.
I received my admission letter yesterday, but the school didn't include any scholarship package, although I applied for a scholarship. How do I go about it?
Okay, thank you. So if it's a graduate program, for most of the schools, you receive your admissions before they finalize your funding. So it may be that if that is the case if that's the case of this student, he can still begin the process, but there's no telling really about whether your funding will be approved or not. So if he has made his financial plans, then he can go ahead and follow through with the process, all the things we discussed, the next steps, and then also with the visa, he can start processing or applying for the visa. If at some point he gets lucky and the committee comes out and they say, yeah, we are giving you an assistantship or any kind of funding, that is great. If not, and he's made his financial plans and he can still enroll without the school's funding, he can start. And then when he gets there, he can pursue. Hopefully he can get something. But it's important that he has or he makes a financial plan if he hasn't already.
There's another interesting question here. And one of the students would want to know whether the US Embassy Ghana is still actively processing visas.
So as I mentioned, yes, within our safety protocols, we are processing a limited number of visas. We're trying, while adhering very carefully to all of our safety and pandemic related changes, we are processing a limited number of visas based upon a specific protocol. So we are. And if you ever have a question about the status of what we're doing, you can always look at our website. It's very updated, especially the COVID-19 information page. So that's another good place to look to check on the status of our operations.
Okay. So this goes, Bernice, for grad school. I am told I will be given funding after my first semester. I am a bit hesitant and would like to know what happens if the school doesn't give it to me after my first semester. Please advise.
Okay, very interesting question. I would say that if the school is saying they will give you the semester after your first, they probably won't go back on their words to jeopardize your studies. So if it's their policy to not give funding to admitted students as they come in, then the students in question should plan to pay for the first semester, but have a plan B. So maybe plan to pay for the first year so that if something delays, the first year at least would have been covered, and he or she will have ample time to work things out with the school. So by the second year, everything would have been worked out. But normally, if a school says we'll give you funding in your second semester, they probably will. They may not go back on their words, if I got the question right.
Thank you very much, Bernice. There is another visa question here. I would like to know how visa applications and visa payments are done.
It's a great question. And I would point you to the website that lays it out step by step with links to, for instance, the DS-160, where you fill that out, what part of the process you pay. So rather than trying to walk through it quickly, it may get lost. I would point you to the either travel.state.gov under visas and student visas. That has a great step-by-step, or also the US Embassy in Ghana website. Both list out the steps that you need to take in order to apply for your student visa. So please head on over in one of those two locations.
Okay, thank you. Still on visas, I have an unexpired B1, B2 visa. When I apply for a student visa, will my B1, B2 be canceled, or I will be given a student visa in addition?
Mm-hmm. Yes, so with all of those specific questions, I really want to just provide general guidance. I understand that you all have a lot of very good questions and valid questions, and it's a good opportunity to get them asked, but we'll save that one for when you come in, or if you want to email us in advance, we'd be glad to look into your case and to speak with you about it. But anything more general, I'm glad to answer today.
And there is another one here. If the program major on the I-20, which one should be used on the DS-160?
Part of that cut out. So I heard something about the program on the I-20, what should be used on the DS-160?
Yes, so if the program on the admission letter is slightly different from the major on the I-20 form, which one should be used on the DS-160 form?
That's a peculiar question. I'm not sure why the program subject would be different. I'm not sure if Bernice has any insight into that, but I'm not quite sure. So I would try to make them consistent. So the I-20 and the DS-160 consistent. And then maybe a question for the school too about why there's a difference. I'm not sure.
I think what happens is that because of the way they categorize the programs in civis, sometimes a student is going to do a specific program, but it's categorized broadly. So let's say international relations, the person wants to focus on a particular aspect of international relations. So he will be thinking, I'm going to do one thing, the I-20 comes and is saying another, but it's actually a sub-emphasis of the bigger category. So yeah, if your I-20 says one thing, it's good, like Courtney was saying, reach out to your school and just get the clarification. But usually what happens is how civis categorizes the program versus how or what you have chosen. So just reach out to your school and confirm that it is a civis categorization thing. Then when you go for the interview, you'll be able to explain.
Thank you.
So does a change in name affect my visa application?
So there's a place on the DS-160 where you can enter, and you absolutely should enter an alias, it's called. So if, for instance, you've had a change of name for whatever reason, there's a place where it says alias, and it's any name that you've ever gone by. You would enter in that category, and you should enter any name that you've ever had. If you changed your name upon marriage, for instance, or if for whatever reason you've changed your name or used other names, please include those on the application there's an alias part of the actual application. Good question.
Thank you. And does having a sponsor in the US affect my application negatively?
So that's not really one that I could answer. It's an individual situation. So when you could come prepared to discuss your funding for your program and where that funding is coming from. Just be prepared to explain the sources of that funding, and so wherever that source is. Margaret, I believe you're muted.
Sorry,
So,
yeah. Denise?
So I have a question here about if someone completes and submits a DS-160 and realizes that there's a mistake or has to fill another one because there was a date change, is there a way for them to update what they submitted already, or would they complete another one?
So that depends. That depends. And the best thing to do, I'm sorry, I feel like a broken record, keep saying, just email us. And I know that we're going to have an increased workload with the emails coming in, but it really is better to ask us, because it depends on what kind of change needs to be made and just the nature of the issue. So please just contact us about your specific question, because then we can more clearly answer it with accurate information.
Great.
I have another question here. I lost my degree certificate when my bag was snatched. Can I apply for visa with a certified copy of my degree certificate?
Yes, because that's not a required document. It's one that is often helpful to have as a way to bolster your academic bona fides or bona fides, if you will, but it's not required. And you can bring in whatever you happen to have that shows your academic status.
Okay. The expected date on the I-20 can be different from the orientation date. Can I use the orientation date to apply the emergency appointment?
It does specifically ask for your program start date. So I would enter your program start date. There is a box, however, where you explain why you are requesting an expedited appointment. So you can enter the information about your orientation in that box that asks you to explain.
And is there any special information we should be aware in filling the DS-160 form?
Do it as accurately and fully as possible. You should fill out your own form, or at least you are responsible for all of the information that is in your DS-160. So make sure that everything is accurate and that you have fully answered all of the questions, because when you sign it, you are attesting that you swear that everything in that application is true. And so you very much want to always be honest and always be truthful throughout this entire process. So that is what I would say, is to be as careful and specific and honest and fully answer all of the questions as you can.
Denise, do you have anything to say at this point?
Thank you, Margaret. I would like to remind our audience that Education USA is always around to help them understand the process and do it in a way that will help them succeed. Because of COVID, we are not doing in-person programs, but I think we are doing so much more, even through our virtual programs. So they should feel free to reach out to us, both in Accra and Kumasi. We are here to help. If we don't know the answer, now we know. If it has to do with visa, we have an email, consulaccra@state.gov. We will direct you to that email if it's a personal or personalized question, if it has to do with the visa. But anything else, reach out to Education USA. We are here to help you, because your success is also success to us. So I want to remind our audience that we are here for them.
Wow. Your success is a success. Courtney,
Yes.
do you have anything to say?
I think would just like to echo what Bernice said. I think that's absolutely true. Education USA is such a wealth of knowledge and experience and is there to help through this complicated process and knows how to reach us and has so much information. So if you do have specific questions, don't be shy about reaching out to them. If it's something very specific about your particular case with the visa, please feel free to reach out to us as well. But you have a lot of folks here to help you along this journey. So I wish you all the best, especially during these challenging times.
Okay.
And I want to quickly add that if you are watching this session and you are not in Ghana, the processes to follow after you gain admission are pretty much the same. What might vary slightly will be the visa application process from country to country. So, but I think the expectations of Consular in terms of the three things Madam Consular listed: academic preparation, your ties to your home country, and then showing your funding, that you are prepared financially. Those things may not change. So just master the process based on the information on your embassy's website. But everything else we've discussed will be pretty much the same. We're happy that you were able to join us. And we thank you so much. If you didn't come in, our program wouldn't have been successful. So thank you very much. I also want to use the platform to say thank you to Courtney. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for agreeing to do this session. It's so different. It's so wonderful to hear from a consular officer talk about these things. So thank you very much.
You're most welcome.
I took the wind out of Maggie's sail.
This session has been very informative. As an admitted student, you can confidently say that you now know what to do next. Courtney and Bernice Afoke for your excellent presentation. Now, for those who joined late, you can go back and watch the video. Also, don't forget that Education USA is the official source of information on US higher education. Education USA Accra is located at the US Embassy, whilst Education USA is located at Asapa, the third floor of Top Martins Complex. If you have any questions, as Bernice said, please do connect with us via email, phone call. Education USA Kumasi is open, so you can visit us at the center. Kindly check this page for our contact details. It will be shared here. You can also visit our website, which is educationusa.state.gov. I repeat it, educationusa.state.gov. To our cherished viewers, we believe that you had a wonderful time with us. And to all admitted students, once again, we say Ayiko to you. We wish you the best as you move to the next stage of the process. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.